years with the threat of nuclear weapons, and he wanted to remind the world of what they can do without talking about who did what to whom. And so that was interesting.
The Federation of American Scientists weighed in on this speech and the specific focus on nuclear weapons, saying Mr. Obama's visit to Hiroshima takes place in the shadow of his nuclear weapons legacy. The Obama administration has reduced the U.S. stockpile less than any other post-Cold War administration. The number of warheads dismantled in 2015 was lowest since President Obama took office. And then these are the actual stats of the stockpile changes since the end of the Cold War. And there you see President Obama at 13% during his time. He talks about, and has talked about, Nina, this for quite some time.
Eliminating nuclear weapons. And by the way, it's not just President Obama. I mean, this is a bipartisan thing. We've seen a lot of former Republican officials saying that they want to eliminate nuclear weapons. But I think there's a dangerous moral equivalency when you start just focusing on American stockpiles, for example. You know, the 30 years leading up to the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima, where 80 million people were killed in 2 world wars. With the American nuclear leadership, since the last 70 years, there hasn't been a world war. And and yet you also have these bad actors with nuclear weapons, which is where, in my mind, we should be focusing. North Korea is very realistic to think about them launching a nuclear strike. You have the always unstable Pakistan with nuclear weapons there. You have the potential of nuclear weapons falling into the hands of terrorists. You have the potential of Iran getting a nuclear weapon, even with the nuclear deal. And I think it's sort of, you lose focus on this conversation about nuclear weapons and the real danger and threat of nuclear weapons when you focus on American stockpiles.
Charles, you wrote a column about this and how President Obama is a foreign policy idealist. Explain that.
Well, we saw it today. I mean, here's a guy who went around the world when he's inaugurated, I don't know if you want to use the word apologize, but confessing to a long history of American sins, from the maltreatment of the Indians to the coup in Iran in '53, the coup in Guatemala, how we arrogant towards Europe. The list is very long. And it's sort of, he closed the circle of that apology tour today in Hiroshima. And to say it wasn't a formal apology, of course he wasn't going to use the word. And yes, he did speak of war in the abstract, but he did it in Hiroshima. If you want to do a speech about war in the abstract, you do it in Prague, which is what he did in 2009. When you do it in Hiroshima, of course you're talking about World War II. Of course you're talking about America dropping the war. And of course the implication is that we have a sense of guilt about it, if not an overt apology. Look, this is a visit he should have made next year as a private citizen, in which case he could speak like a naive private citizen about escaping the logic of fear. What other way is there of dealing with nuclear weapons other than the logic of fear, i.e. deterrence? Eliminating them is never going to happen, and it would weaken us. Do we want to be without nuclear weapons when there's a nutcase Pyongyang who's acquiring them, or the apocalyptic genocidal mullahs in Iran are acquiring them? Of course not. And the president, speaking as president, was representing the United States. I thought it was embarrassing, his utopianism, and the implicit apology dishonored our nation. It's not something he should have done.